Hey, welcome to our explainer. Today we're cracking open what we're calling the Environmental Management Toolkit. Basically, we're going to look at all the essential tools we have to build a better future.
So this is it, right? This is the big question. We all want progress, innovation, better lives. But how do we get there without wrecking the very planet that keeps us all going? Okay, let's dive into some of the tools that are actually helping us figure that out. Here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at what you do before you even start a project. Then, we'll check out the amazing tech we use to monitor our planet. After that, we'll get into some really cool on-the-ground strategies. And finally, we'll put it all together and see what the path forward looks like. All right, first up, the tools for foresight. This is all about looking before you leap, making sure we actually understand the ripples our actions might cause before we make a big splash. And the biggest tool in this part of the kit is the Environmental Impact Assessment, or EIA. Honestly, you can think of it as a kind of crystal ball for any big project. It's a structured way of forcing everyone to stop and ask, hey, what's this new highway or factory really going to do to the local environment, to the air, the water, and the people who live right there? But like any tool, it's not perfect, and that's what's so important here. On the one hand, an EIA is awesome. It encourages us to protect things ahead of time, it involves the public, and it can actually lead to much smarter project designs. But then, on the other hand, they can be super slow and expensive. And sometimes, let's be real, they can just become a bureaucratic formality, a box-ticking exercise that doesn't actually stop a bad idea. Of course, the EIA isn't working in a vacuum. It gets paired with stuff like environmental auditing, which is kind of like a regular checkup to make sure companies are actually playing by the rules. And super importantly, there's public participation. This is where local people bring their knowledge to the table, which almost always makes the final decision stronger and, well, more fair. So to plan anything well, you need good information, right? That brings us to our next set of tools, which are all about data. Think of these as our eyes in the sky, the tech that lets us see the big picture of our planet's health. And wow, this slide just says it all. You're looking at the same exact place, decades apart. One picture from 1977, the other from 2020. This is how we see things like long-term deforestation. It's a change so slow and vast, you'd never be able to truly grasp it just by standing on the ground. So what is this magic? The technology that makes these images possible is called remote sensing. It's pretty much what it sounds like, the science of gathering info from a distance, using satellites or drones to keep a constant eye on Earth. But it's not just for tracking sad things like deforestation. Check out this super practical use in farming. This is a special kind of map that helps a farmer see exactly which parts of their field are thriving and which parts are struggling. This means they can apply water or fertilizer only where it's needed, saving money and, of course, reducing waste. And here's the crucial thing to remember. Getting these cool pictures is just step one. The real power, the real magic, comes when we can actually analyze all that data and turn it into something useful. And that's where GIS comes in. GIS stands for Geographical Information System. Now, if remote sensing gives us the eyes, GIS is the brain. It's the software that takes all those pictures and data points, layers them on top of each other, and helps us spot patterns we'd never see otherwise. And here's what that actually looks like. This isn't just a map of a city. It's a story told with data. GIS has layered information about air pollution, factories, and maybe even traffic patterns. Suddenly, you can see exactly where the pollution hotspots are, which helps policymakers take real, targeted action. Okay, so we've got our planning tools and our data tools. Now it's time to get our hands dirty with the third part of our toolkit, the smart, on-the-ground ways we can manage our resources. Here's a brilliant example, focusing on what are called non-timber forest products. So instead of seeing a forest and just thinking lumber, this approach says, hey, what about the value in the nuts, the fruits, the medicinal plants, the honey? It actually creates a real economic reason for people to keep the forest alive and healthy. And we're not talking about a small niche industry here. In India alone, an estimated 275 million people depend on these products to make a living. That's a massive economy built on conservation, not on cutting everything down. Okay, let's switch gears to energy. We hear the word hydrogen all the time, but it turns out not all hydrogen is the same. There's gray hydrogen, which is actually made from natural gas and is really polluting. Then there's blue, which is the same process, but they try to capture the carbon. But the holy grail, the one we're really aiming for, is green hydrogen. That's made by splitting water using clean, renewable energy. The result? Zero emissions.
Here's another cool idea. Petrocrops. These are plants, like this one called jatropha, that are naturally oily and can be turned into biodiesel. And the really clever part is that they can grow on poor quality land, so we're not taking away farmland that we need to grow food for people.
Now let's talk about something we all deal with, waste. The master plan for managing waste is this simple pyramid. It ranks our options from best to worst. The absolute best thing you can do is prevent waste in the first place. In the very, very last resort, the thing you only do if you have no other choice is disposal, landfill. Everything in between is about wringing every last drop of value out of our stuff. And this is where awesome tech comes in. This Nisarguna technology is a super efficient way to climb that waste hierarchy. It takes all our biodegradable waste, like kitchen scraps, and quickly turns it into two amazing things: clean cooking gas and incredibly rich compost to grow more food. It's a closed loop. So we've covered planning, data, and on-the-ground action. So what happens when we put it all together? Well, that brings us to the path forward. And this is the main takeaway. None of these tools works by itself. It's a whole system. We use remote sensing data to do a better EIA. That EIA might point us towards smarter solutions like using green hydrogen or building a Nisarguna plant instead of a new landfill. They're all connected, and together, they give us the power to make much, much better choices. And that really leaves us with this final, big question. We have the tools to see the future, the technology to understand the present, and the strategies to act sustainably. The power to build a better world without it costing the Earth is literally in our hands. The only question left is, are we going to use it wisely?